Welcome to Sharing Life, Changing Lives, a podcast brought to you by the Henderson Church of Christ in Henderson, Tennessee. On this podcast, we explore stories of faith, hope, and love, real-life examples of how God works through his people to make a difference. Join us each week as we share conversations that inspire, encourage, and remind us all of the power of a Christ-centered life.
Welcome to Sharing Life, Changing Lives, the podcast from the Henderson Church of Christ. I'm the pulpit minister here at the Henderson Church of Christ, Robert Hatfield, joined as always by our family minister, Bill Wade. How you doing, Bill?
Robert, for November, I am good.
Well, good. I'm glad. Okay. Is November usually bad?
No, I just can't believe it's here already.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, here we are. By the way, we've got some special episodes coming up. I'm glad you mentioned that. We're going to hear from some of our adults in next week, Lord willing. But after that, this is one I'm really excited about. No offense to the adults. We're going to have our kids come on, and it's going to be a whole episode full of our kids. The one before that, full of our adults, telling us what they're thankful for this year. So kind of November Thanksgiving-y. I like it.
Yep. Kind of fits.
It does fit. But I tell you what fits for today, and that is Jason Pierce right between us here. How's that for a segue, Jason? How you doing, man?
The rose between the thorns.
That's right. That's exactly right. Jason and his family, Devin, and their boys have been on the mission field for a very long time and are serving Freed-Hardeman this academic year as the missionary in residence. And you guys have a strong history and tie to this congregation, and we're loving having you here when you're not on the road speaking someplace during the semester. So thanks for taking some time to sit down with us today. Welcome.
I'm glad to do it, and we love being at Henderson. It's been just a wonderful experience for us.
Yeah.
Just a great congregation, very, very encouraging.
Well, awesome. Well, you have been an encouragement to us as well. Go on our website if you're watching or listening to this, hendersoncoc.com, and check out the two sermons that Jason preached on our Missions Emphasis Day, the last Sunday of October. They were both outstanding, so we appreciate that a whole lot. Today, we just thought we would talk about missionaries, and since you are one, you seem like a good candidate to discuss some of these things. And especially for the bulk of the episode, I'd like us to talk about how we can better support you guys, those of us who are here stateside, and how we can support our missionaries. But as we get into that, it was funny because one of the kids' Bible class teachers told me that on Missions Emphasis Day, she was talking to her class about how we had a special preacher that day, and he's a missionary. And she said, one of the kids said, "What's a missionary?" So I want to ask you, what's a missionary? Tell us how you, a missionary, define that term.
All right. Mark Blackwelder used to say that you have to be a little bit weird to be a missionary. So I guess that's where it starts.
A missionary is a weird person. Okay. That's a good place.
My wife wears a shirt that she got from somewhere that says missionary is somebody who leaves their home and their family behind for a time so that other people can be with their families for eternity. And so I think that that's a good idea. You know, when we think about the missionary, he's somebody who goes to share the word of God. And usually, traditionally, it's to a weaker place or, often associated with foreign countries or whatever. But it's the idea of carrying the gospel.
Yeah. There are so many places in the world that maybe haven't heard the gospel, or maybe in our generation, in our lifetime, maybe the church isn't as strong as it is in other places or has been in the past. Like you say, we usually think about foreign countries. I was talking with a fella from Brazil the other day, and he said, I think we have churches of Christ in Brazil, So to the point, right? But there are places within the U.S. too that need to hear the message. So yeah, a lot of opportunities there.
And there is a difference, I think you would agree, between going on a mission trip.
Oh, that's a good point.
And then dedicating a big chunk of your life to being on the mission field. Right. I've been on several mission trips, with part of this church and others, but I don't consider myself a missionary. So you're just coming back from Fiji. So in addition to the work there, where all have you been as a missionary?
So full-time, we've been in 2 places. We started out in Russia. So right after I graduated from Freed-Hardeman, Devin and I had been married just a little over a year. We had a 3-month-old baby, and we thought it was a great idea at the time to move to Russia. And so we spent almost 3 years living there. Our second son was actually born there. And so it was kind of a tough work, and our teammates kind of ended up losing their support, and it was too tough of a work to be by ourselves. So we came back, and then our first work stateside was what would be considered a mission point in Kentucky. In fact, the congregation we first got there was on support. And so we did that for about 5 years, and then we came back to Tennessee, and I preached locally here in Parsons for about 6.5 years, got my second degree, and then we moved to Fiji and lived there for a little over 8 years.
Wow.
When we say, just for the sake of those who may not sort of be initiated, but support, we're talking about financial support that comes from churches all over the place. And we believe the Bible teaches that the work of the church is funded by the church itself through the free will contributions that are given every Lord's Day. And it's often reminded here, whoever's leading us in that contribution, these works go to support the spreading of the gospel throughout the world. And you are one of the means by which this church, you and your family, have done that. And so we appreciate that a lot. But domestic or abroad, sometimes that support is required. One church assisting another church to keep the doors open or to disseminate the gospel to the local people there.
And it's a biblical concept. I mean, you see Paul talking about it in 1 Corinthians 9, that the laborer is worthy of his hire, but then he talks about the Philippians supporting him. In Philippians chapter 4, he says, from the moment I left, and they were a mission point. He said, from the moment I left them to go to Thessalonica, he says, you were the only ones at that time that were supporting me. And he said, I accepted it even though he felt like they couldn't afford it. He said, but it was for the church's benefit as much as for his own. And so I think that it's very important that churches be involved in seeing the bigger picture and seeing a global view of the Lord's church and the Lord's mission.
One of the things that's said about the congregation here, and I don't mean to brag, but I guess I'll just kind of brag on us a minute, because our missions budget is quite large. I don't remember the exact figure right now. Bill, maybe you do, but there's a lot of money that is poured into, and for us, the way we sort of delineate, we think about missions, and those are those specific, mission points that may need support, or missionaries who need support. And then we have sort of a separate budget item for local evangelism, even though that is a mission in and of itself as well. But there's a good amount of money, and recently we had Missions Emphasis Day, and we have a special contribution there, and there was like $35,000 or something that was given. So I just appreciate how much this congregation believes in and wants to support the dissemination of the gospel all over the world. Yeah. And it's amazing that in a small town like this, we can touch virtually every continent. I mean, it's amazing.
Well, you can tell a lot about a church and its leadership and direction by the direction of the budget.
Yeah.
And so I'm very thankful that if you look at our budget line item by line item, one of the largest is our mission line item. Yeah. And, I know that when we think about mission work, being here in the States, we take so much for granted. But you mentioned being in Kentucky. We have, of all of our mission points from Henderson, we've got 3 that are in the States, in Vermont, in Mississippi, in Florida. And you don't necessarily think, oh, well, there's places here in the States that need help. But that's just not the case. There are churches everywhere. And so to your point, we need to be keeping our eyes open and our ears open to those needs when they come in, because these are folks that walk and talk and think just like us, and they need some help, and we need to be willing to do what we can.
What was it that drew you guys to Fiji? You said you lived there for 8 years. I think you mentioned when you were preaching here that day that it was like a 10-year process, kind of scoping out the work and all that. First of all, tell us where Fiji is and what Fiji's like, and that may help to answer the question about what led you there. But anyway, describe that for us.
Yeah, Fiji is in the heart of the South Pacific. The easiest way to find it is if you can find Australia on the map, go to the point where Brisbane is, and go right from Brisbane, and then find Auckland, New Zealand below it. It just kind of makes an arrow that points roughly to where Fiji is.
Would I have to zoom in on Google Maps to find it?
Yes, probably. So it's an island, and islands are small. You can drive around the outer ring of the island in between 12 and 14 hours.
Oh, okay.
And that's a very large island, actually, for the South Pacific that we lived on. But we got our interest in Fiji in 2003. My dad took his first trip, earlier in around 2000, he took his first trip to Fiji as a short-term worker, and then beginning in 2003, they started working in the South Pacific full-time, and originally he was working with something called the Pacific Islands Bible College with Robert Martin, and he's lived a couple of different places. I spent about 6 months in the Cooks, and then he lived about 5 years in American Samoa. And so he had come back here to do mission residence at Freed-Hardeman. And after that was over, he was looking for new work, and he'd had some Christians who wanted they were saying, we want a full-time school program to do more leadership and preacher training. And so he was looking at doing that. And so in the meantime, when we came home from Russia, we got involved in just doing, every other year or so, we would, or at least I would go do a mission trip with him for a couple of weeks to different places in the South Pacific. So my first trip was actually in 2005, teaching Pacific Islands Bible College for about 2.5 weeks. And
20 years ago now.
So,
wow.
Yeah, it is hard to believe. I still had hair. So
a lot of us did 20 years ago.
But yeah, so that was the first place I went. And then oddly enough, it would be another 9 years before I would go back because my parents moved to American Samoa. So I went a couple of times there. I went to Kiribati 1 year. And so I was already scheduled to do just a short-term trip to Fiji, and the opportunity opened for me to join Mom and Dad to actually move there. So what was originally just a 2-week trip turned into a survey trip. And so about a little over 2 years after that, we actually moved there and got to work with my parents. So great teammates.
Yeah. It's amazing how the Lord opens doors like that.
It is.
And so
leads us,
and mission work is not just a Jason and Devin Pierce thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's your entire family, for the most part, has been involved with mission work.
You're right.
And I just, your wife actually just texted me. And I don't think she knew what we were doing right now.
Funny.
Well, actually, she loved my response. I told her we were doing a podcast right now. She was just letting me know that she had done some kind of random act of kindness for someone, and she wanted someone else to know in case there were questions later. And so that just goes to show that you guys are always thinking about other people and how you can help and make some kind of simple gesture of kindness. And so that ties into mission work, because you have to have a heart of selflessness,
right?
To leave everything that's comfortable. Family. I mean, when you preached here a couple of weeks ago, and Robert and I talked about this ourselves afterwards, I had never really thought about some of the sacrifices that a missionary actually has to make in order to go and make that kind of commitment. So thank you for all of that.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, and it's one of those things that as missionaries, a part of our makeup is we tend not to want to make a big deal about those things. And so coming off the field, it kind of gives me a chance more to try to represent those who are still on the field currently to kind of boost things, because, missionaries, again, they experience these challenges, these sacrifices, but they're not doing it because they want credit for it. Most of them are doing it because they believe in the mission itself, and this is just a part of it.
Right.
And so for me, I really struggled actually with that lesson. My wife can tell you I spent more time probably writing that lesson than any other sermon I've ever written, just agonizing over exactly how to approach it. And then I had written a good bit of it, and then I was about to just scrap it, actually. I handed it to my wife and said, I don't usually do this, but I sent my notes to my wife. I said, can you please read over this and tell me, should I just start this over? Because I didn't want it to come across as a woe is me or it's all about me. But I do, think it's important that the church understand what the people on the field are dealing with, because a lot of times they're not going to tell you themselves.
Yeah. No, we focus on, I think, we focus on the externals.
Yeah.
We see things like, oh, they're going to Fiji. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
But what we don't understand, I mean, I was sitting there thinking when you were talking about some of the things that from a food standpoint, I'm like, there ain't no way. But y'all had to be prepared, for all of those different things. And I thought, man, they're focused not on external, they're talking internal. And I just, like I said, I hadn't thought about those things in that way before. So I'm glad that you didn't scrap it, because I needed to hear it for sure.
And it reminds me to the point here that a missionary isn't just something you do; it's who you are. I mean, you wouldn't make all the sacrifices if it wasn't in your heart and just an expression of your heart. But the same is true. Like, here's your wife, Devin, who's texting and saying, "Hey, I did this." You could easily say, "Well, I'm not in Fiji right now. I'm going to take my ease and eat, drink, and be merry." I read that in Scripture somewhere, and it's ill-advised in that context.
Yes, it is.
But it would be easy to say, "I did my time." Now I'm back in the comforts of the States, and I'm going to take some time for me. And rather than doing that, you both are very busy about the Lord's work, and that just tells me that it's who you are.
Yep.
And I appreciate that a whole lot. Okay, since Bill brought up some of the Fijian cultures, I mean, this is very much island culture. I think tropical, nice. But you're like talking about eating whole fish and stuff.
Right.
Like, what do you want to share anything with our listening audience?
Yeah, sure.
Bearing in mind the internet is the World Wide Web.
Yes, I'm aware. So yeah, you got to be good and careful.
Hello to Fiji.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, a lot of people, that's the number one response we get when they're like, "Oh, what do you do?" "Well, we're missionaries." And it's like, "Oh, yeah, that's very serious. Where are you at?" And we say, "Well, we've been in Fiji for 8 years." And then they're like, "Oh, wow."
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's always this, poor you. In fact, my brother-in-law introduced my wife one time to somebody and she says she's a missionary, but really they're just on vacation for Jesus.
Oh, wow.
And so...
Yeah. You get to drink out of coconuts or anything?
I have, and I do have pictures of drinking on a tropical beach from a coconut. I've got a great picture of me, and all the stereotypes are there. And it's a tropical island, and so there are some beautiful places. But where we lived was in Suva. It's the capital city, and it's got all of the things that a lot of cities would have. It's a harbor. We're probably 2 hours away from the nearest beach that we would want to go swimming or snorkeling or something in. And so we can see the ocean, and it's a beautiful view. But on the other hand, it rains like probably 80% of the days of the year.
Really?
So it's, flip side is it never gets colder than 67. Usually doesn't drop below 72. So
what was the population in that place?
So, the greater Suva area, which is Lamy, Suva, and Nassori, is roughly around, I think, 250,000.
Okay, wow.
It's very crowded.
So a lot like here, really.
So, yeah, like Henderson, almost the same.
Almost the same, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of it is just working. I mean, you've got traffic and a lot of rain and potholes, and there are the days where you don't know if you're going to have electricity or running water. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a challenging place at times as well. But, the flip side is, again, every time you start to question it, you look out the window and, you see the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
So
it's beautiful.
It is. And you're just reminded how awesome God is. And to me, that's the greatest thing, is a lot of times that beauty is kind of what helps me to stay grounded, is just to remember the God who made it. And this is why we're here.
I want us to get into some of the great points. And in full disclosure, you made some of these points during the sermon that we keep referencing. But I want us to talk about some of the things, the practical things that you mentioned about how those of us who are the senders can help those of you who are the goers.
Yeah.
What are some ways that Christians here in the U.S. can support those who are willing to go? You've got several thoughts, I know. Where do you want to start here?
I think the first thing is communication. Probably the hardest thing that we struggled with is there is a sense of isolation. And again, you talk about concepts like culture shock, and those are very real things. Because again, no matter how much you love a place, no matter how much you love the people, there will always be those things that are different when your cultures are going to clash with each other. And in those times you can feel very isolated, especially if you're on an island where it's a very small area and there's just no places really to go to ever get away from the work to get that break.
I would imagine this time of year would be difficult if you're in a totally different culture. I mean, family, friends back home are celebrating Thanksgiving and all of that. It's just, they're not doing that in Fiji.
Right. Yeah. And so, you have to embrace it. Of course, the flip side is, we would have, in Russia, we would have friends over. I've had Thanksgiving dinner and Christmas meals with literally people from all over the world. I think when we were in Russia, I think one time we had 5 different nationalities sitting at our table for Thanksgiving Day.
Wow. Yeah.
And so you try to find those positives, but it does help when you can stay grounded, when you know that there are people who are thinking about you at home. And so, like I said, I don't know how many times we would wake up and I'd just be like, I'm really struggling today. And then I go to check my email and there'll just be some note from somebody who said, hey, I just read your report and just wanted you to know we're thinking about you. Yeah. And we've got a congregation that supports us that I think we get a signed card that'll have 20 or 30 names on it just every month or two. In fact, we just got one a week or two ago. And so things like that, just to know that you're appreciated. With that, probably the thing that was hardest in Fiji because of the time difference, especially, and communication issues, was not hearing voices. So calling people, and it was like when we get calls, usually it's going to be some business aspect of things. And so that, just calling sometimes not just to check on the work, but to check on the person doing the work.
And the great thing is it's never been easier to stay in touch, even calls. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah, and that was one thing, Russia, one of the things that made it so hard to stay, especially when we lost our teammates and we're like, we cannot do this alone. There, I think we were paying 35 cents a minute to call the U.S. when we first got there. And so Devin and I would each get to call our parents one time a month. That was what we kind of in our budget did. We'd talk to them 30 minutes to an hour once a month, and that was about the only communication we had. Now, you did have email back then, but most of your listeners probably aren't going to know what this means, but we'd get 12 kbs of internet sometimes, which means literally you cannot load this, you can't even load the spiral to tell you it's loading. I mean, it was so slow. So some days you could email and some days you couldn't. But when we were in Fiji, the technology had come so far, not only could we talk to our parents, we could talk to anybody, anytime with video chat. So when our kids came home, we could still communicate with them. But that really helps it. So I think for Christmas last year, our kids called and we put it up on the TV screen and we played a board game together.
Whoa.
And so, we were, for a couple of hours, we were just on the phone. And so it wasn't exactly the same as being together, but it was a lot better than it had been in years past.
Yeah. What else in addition to communication can we do?
I think sending, I talked about in the lesson, sending those care packages, and it's not about, we need stuff as much as it is just those reminders when you're homesick and, just those reminders from home. And for us, I know people laughed, and here it's a big joke, about us and the ranch packets. And so we're kind of legendary about our ranch packets.
Yes.
But Devin put something, she says, oh no, I'm nearly out of ranch. And we literally, within like 3 weeks or a month, had gotten over 90 packs of ranch packets so we could make ranch dressing.
Hidden Valley Ranch.
And,
Okay.
and it all got eaten.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
You know, I mean, that was kind of a staple. That was one of our things that just helped us.
Do the
to
customs
remind us of
people
home.
look at you weird? When
Oh,
you're
yeah. So when we went to pick up, especially we got a box that had like 30 or 60 from the Henderson church building. We get this box, and then there were like 3 other packages at the same time, and that's all that was in any of them.
Oh.
And so again, I mean, there were 70 or 80 that we got at one time.
Yeah.
And the lady is looking at us, and you know, she's like tallying it up, and we're like, it's for us to use. We promise we're eating this. And so the first thing is, what is ranch? You know, is this a biohazard? So we had to go through all of that. And then it's, are we going to tax you through the nose for it? And we're like, this is for personal use. And so
we're not opening a restaurant.
They gave it to us like we were crazy. But
Who would have thought?
I know.
Ranch.
Oh. We've got like a couple of more minutes. Is there something else that you can share?
Yeah, with that, I would just add the best thing is to send workers, and I know it's expensive, and not, you know, to send people over to check on your missionary. And again, I made this point, not just to check on the work. I think the work is very important, and we wanted people to come and to see what we were doing so that they were confident, because if they see what we're doing and they believe in it, then they're going to, you know, believe in us, and the support will stay there. And so we never tried to hide anything we were doing. So we want you to see the work, but sometimes the best thing you can do for your missionary is just go see them.
Yeah. It's not a business
that
trip.
Strength and that encouragement, and this idea, oh, we're not going to send family over there, you know, that's vacation time. I would argue that that's investing in your missionary.
Absolutely.
Because those times when we had family or friends who came, it's the difference in staying 2 years versus Russia. We couldn't get anybody to come see us.
Yeah.
And so it really is the difference between staying 2 or 3 years and staying 8 or 9.
So in addition to coming yourself, maybe deacons or just really interested Christians who wish to go over and check on you guys, but you're also saying maybe churches could help to send your family members who are stateside over to see you or something.
Yeah, and again, don't create work for them. Do things that do things that will be helpful to them. Don't overwhelm them. You know, sometimes we want to go to the other extreme, and it's like, oh, it's Fiji. We'll send 40 people there.
Yeah, right.
And that's going to overwhelm the work rather than help. But sending those couple of people there is an encouragement to the work, but also to the missionary.
I love that. Mm-hmm. Well, Jason, thank you for taking a little time. You've been teaching across the street today, and then you ran right over here and sat down in the hot seat, and we appreciate it. But we, even more than that, appreciate who you are and what you've done and are doing, and will continue to do. I mean, this isn't like this isn't like the ending song here,
right.
But we appreciate very much what you and your family are doing, and are thrilled you're here in Henderson, at least for now.
Oh, we're loving it. And
where
again,
in the
it's
world
a blessing.
are Jason and
very
David?
encouraging and reaffirming for us.
Awesome. Well, we want to thank you for being a part of Sharing Life, Changing Lives. We release new episodes each Wednesday, hendersoncoc.com/podcast, and catch us on WFHU 91.5 on Wednesdays at 10 a.m.
Thank you for listening to Sharing Life, Changing Lives, a podcast from the Henderson Church of Christ in Henderson, Tennessee. We hope you've been encouraged by today's conversation and inspired to live a life of faith in Christ. You and your family are always welcomed with us at the Henderson Church of Christ. Join us on Sundays at 9 a.m. for Bible classes. We have classes that everyone in the family will enjoy. We meet for worship at 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. on Sundays. Our midweek Bible study takes place each Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. We'd love to see you anytime. Be sure to subscribe and share this podcast with others who might be blessed by it. To learn more about the Henderson Church of Christ, visit us online at hendersoncoc.com. Until next time, let's keep sharing life and changing lives for His glory.